We are live. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to RVing in New England, and welcome John DiPietro. And we got a great show tonight. We probably should shut up and start, but we'll talk for a little bit.
Man, you know what? The first thing we need to do is, because the show is live, we need to kind of wish our RVing friends down in Texas and Louisiana and that area the best of luck in getting through these next couple of days. I don't even know the names of the hurricanes. They keep going from I, J, K,
Laura and Marco. First one is Laura coming in tonight, and then Marco on Thursday. Hopefully they're on the road and they evacuated the campgrounds. They had mandatory evacuation, so I suspect a lot of those people are on the road and heading out. Same thing with California too, with those wildfires again. It's the fire season out there.
Yeah,
we're sitting up here in New England with wonderful weather, but I think by the end of the weekend we're going to get the remains of the first hurricane up here, but it'll just be rain and the like.
Yeah, I know. Just this past Sunday we were coming back from New Hampshire and we're on Route 2 in Massachusetts, and I could see a swirling of the trees, and then it hit me, and it knocked me from the right lane into the passing lane without even a second warning. And if there was a car there would have been an issue. So, folks, I know people watch us all over the place. Don't try to be a superhero. And again, I'm not giving safety advice, but
we're not weathermen and we're not police, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we got Frank Cates on, and I hope Frank. Hope you're out in your airstream down. Huh?
He says, "Hey y'all," says Frank.
Yeah, and hope he's out in his airstream on Cape Cod. Scott, got to have his Scott back again. Michelle Fontaine, good evening, Bob and John. I just saw Michelle earlier this week at Lee's Family Trailer Sales. She was having some work done on her Grand Design Imagine motorhome, a travel trailer, I'm sorry. And she's with Rolling on TV, and Monica is on, and she is really excited for tonight's show. See that, John? Monica is excited to watch you and I tonight.
Yeah, you're in that order.
Huh?
In that order. Yeah,
that's probably true.
And Ed is here, of course. We know that Ed is here because Ed's name is already up there. So, Ed, you don't have to say Ed is here. You can just say hi.
Yeah, and Ed, if we see a name, Ed, we can tell that you're here. So that's good. Ed will like this because Ed likes the great outdoors. So wait. Time out already. Yes, time out.
Bob, because of our guest tonight and because of the content that we're dealing with, we are dealing with, which is of national significance and national exposure, I officially, as the vice president of this show, I think we should change the name of our show tonight from RVing in New England to RVing across America. What do you think of that?
That is fine. And okay. Who better to do it than the Director of Government Affairs for the RV Industry Association?
Does he have that power vested within him?
Well, if he doesn't, we'll give it to him. How's that? If he doesn't have it, we'll just tell him that he has it for the next 60 minutes and to use it wisely.
Okay. And
so ladies and gentlemen, did I hit the right button? Welcome.
Well, there he is.
Welcome to the show, Chris.
Hey, John. Hey, Bob. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Chris, since Bob didn't introduce you, why don't you?
I did.
You just said Chris.
No, I said Chris Bornemann.
Did he, Chris?
I think he may have, but just in case, I'm Chris Bornemann, the Director of Government Affairs for the RV Industry Association. Really excited to be here with you guys tonight and with the viewers at home. I wish I was out in an RV right now, along with everybody else, but I'm hunkered down in my lazy boy here, back at home outside Washington, D.C., and ready to take a ride with you guys for the next hour.
Right, hey, but Chris, you don't want to be on an RV down south, though. Not tonight.
No, not tonight.
With those, are they hurricanes? Yeah.
Yeah, so Walter Swenson joined us. Walter is the state director, Walter and Donna, for Massachusetts, Good Sam Club. And I think they're going back to Good Sam Club. I don't know, Walter, give us an update. You haven't given us anything new, but I think Marcus is changing his mind and reinstating the Good Sam directors, and that's always a welcome thing. And Don Hawes, who was a guest a few weeks ago. Hi, Don. Glad to have from Nashua, New Hampshire. And Michelle Fontaine says, speaking of weather, Bob, we ate and drank through one heck of a she's right. I took them out to dinner the other night. We had 2 thunderstorms, but the only salvation was the restaurant did have Jack Daniels, so I could put up with anything, rain or snow, when we do that. Eric Tuller is here. Good evening, Eric. That sounds like a new name. If you're new to the show, Eric, let us know. And Jerry Plant from Majors RV in Cape Cod. So is Eric part of your fan club, Chris?
Eric Tuller. You know who he is, Chris?
I do not, but could be a new friend of mine here soon.
Okay.
Welcome, Eric.
So, Bob, before we get into our subject matter with Chris, you called me this morning and said you've got a very exciting thing to do this weekend. Are you allowed to talk about it?
No, nope, I am not.
Okay.
Nope.
Then don't talk about it.
So probably should have told you that before the show, but
okay.
No, we are not allowed to talk about that. Maybe next week we'll get permission.
Yeah, we'll talk about it because it already happened.
Right.
Okay.
So Chris, you got a big title down there, Government Affairs, and there was recently some activity, some tremendous activity when you think about it, because they actually passed and the president signed the Great American Outdoors Act, and it was bipartisan. Might be the only thing to come out of Washington this year that's bipartisan. But tell us a little bit about your role. DiPietro's going to do another timeout. What? What is it, DiPietro?
Throwing another flag on the play here.
Oh, that's a good point, Chris. That's a good point. I'm going to buy him some flags, and then rather than doing this all night, I'll get the yellow flag or the red flag. It'd be like the soccer officials.
Look, Chris, didn't I tell you we have great guests? I did tell you that before. But look, can you read what Frank Cates wrote over on the right?
Can you read that on the right, Chris?
Yes. It looks like he had.
Why don't you go ahead and read it? Go ahead and tell.
A great synopsis. The Great American Outdoors Act was a bill passed by the United States Congress, signed into law by the president on August 4th. It has 2 major components. It'll fully permanently fund the Land and Water Conservation Fund at $900 million a year in perpetuity, and it will provide up to $9.5 billion over 5 years to address the maintenance backlog at not only just the national parks, Frank, but also at U.S. Forest Service assets, Bureau of Land Management, and some other federal agencies, that are really important to the RV lifestyle, like U.S. Fish and Wildlife.
Well, I think,
all right, folks, thank you for joining us. We'll see you again. Oh, that's not all. Okay, we have more. Okay.
Janine Pettit's on. Don Polk is on from RV Education 101. Janine Pettit from Girl Camper, who was our guest last week. I think Frank's on.
I do know Janine, though. She's my Jersey friend there. We both.
She's
from the great state of New Jersey, and she's been a great partner.
And she's coming up. We announced last week. She's coming up on September 19th because Lee's Family Trailer Sales is doing the Camper College. So they've put together an incredible event for the women in New England, and Janine's coming up, and we're going to have a fun time with that. But I think Frank must be auditioning for a job on the show, John. I think he wants to show us, that he's really got a handle on this stuff. I mean, he's one of the first ones on every week. Frank, we don't make a lot of money at this stuff, Frank. This is passionate love for the industry, so we don't get rich here.
I thought maybe he was interviewing for a job with us. I mean, with the knowledge that he has there, he can join our government relations.
He may be. You'll probably have his resume in your email box tomorrow morning.
John and Frank have a nice ring to it.
That's right.
John and Frank show. So, Eric, I'm looking here at Eric Tuller. The Great American Outdoors Act. One of our guests just did a great synopsis of it, but it's much more than RVing, even though RVing is a huge component of it. Talk about some of the things, and I'm guessing that Jerry, as well as Walter, as well as probably several of our other guests, are going to talk about some of the difficulties that they've had trying to either get in national parks because either there's not enough space or the units that they have are too big because much of the infrastructure in today's national parks were designed 30 and 40 and 50 years ago, when today's toy haulers that are almost 2 stories high didn't exist. So
Sure.
this is really a boost to modernize and expand. Am I right? Do I read it right?
Exactly. This is this is the most significant piece of outdoor recreation legislation that's passed through Congress in over 60 years, if not longer. And this will take care right now. Just in the Park Service alone, they're struggling with $12 billion of backlog maintenance. And this legislation here will not only start to address some of those issues, that RVers see, time in and time out, crumbling roads, bridges that are inadequate, that are closed, that now prevent access to campgrounds or other outdoor recreation assets. But it will also help, protect and, provide more access to places that RVers love to go to. I mean, you can't find an RV that doesn't have a fishing pole in it or a bicycle, and this will help with, maintaining the trail systems, providing more access for boating and fishing and everything that we love to do when we get out to the parks.
Chris,
So there's a
that was an amazing number. I just want to go back on that for a minute. But there's $12 billion in infrastructure just to get caught up,
And yep, and
right?
half of that is in traditional infrastructure like roads and bridges, and the other half of it is in more of the asset infrastructure like trails, campgrounds, marinas, bathhouses, visitor centers. There's about $250 million across the Park Service in backlog just at campgrounds alone. And this is something that we need to address. This is something that.
Chris, that's twice in the last 30 seconds that you've used the word backlog. And that's significant. That's significant that this is not current maintenance, cleaning, picking up newspapers and trimming trees. This has been backlogged for a long time. And finally, it took COVID to make this thing happen because, everybody says, oh, the bad stuff about COVID, but I'm guessing that if COVID didn't happen, this wouldn't have gotten through that quickly because everybody has said outdoor activity is what we need this summer.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of components, that push this piece of legislation across the finish line. One of them being, as you mentioned, John, the Congress's recognition of the health and well-being aspects of getting outdoors. There's the mental health, the physical health aspects of getting out into our parks, and something also, equally significant to that is for the first time ever, Congress has recognized the economic impact that the RV and outdoor recreations have on our economy, especially in those rural areas. Just to give you a few numbers there, the RV industry itself, we contribute $114 billion to the economy every year. Outdoor recreation contributes $778 billion to the economy every year. It supports 5.2 million jobs across the country, and before COVID was 2.2% of the GDP and growing faster than the economy itself. I mean, it took legislation that we passed 5 years ago for Congress to recognize this significant economic impact to get outdoor recreation a seat at the table on Capitol Hill. And these are the things that are now coming from that. And I see that you have the Outdoor Recreation Roundtable logos up as well. And I'm happy to talk about that.
Go ahead, because that, when you go ahead, John.
Let me say one thing on that. Those are hard to read because there's so many of them. But the other aspect of this that's so important is that this is national. This is not like impacting only the Southeast or the Northeast or the far West. This impacts the entire United States. And wouldn't that be significant to get, in the third B word you said, you used 3 B words there, backlog, billion, but I think the most important one, especially in this climate that we're in right now, is bipartisan.
Absolutely. I mean, this had so much bipartisan support from overwhelming vote in the Senate. I believe it was 73 senators voted to pass it, unheard of, and a huge bipartisan overwhelming vote in the House. I mean, again, Congress is they're now seeing the benefits that RVing, boating, getting outside, getting out in the parks, and that physical and mental benefit that it has, but as I mentioned, that significant economic impact that it has, and the jobs that it's creating, especially in these rural communities.
Okay, you may have already said it, but we're using the term outdoor recreation. Define what some of those subsets of outdoor recreation would be.
Sure. So, you have RVing, you have camping, hiking, biking, fishing, snowmobiling. If you exert physical energy and you're outside, you can be part of this family. That's really driving the economy and providing this respite, especially at a time now, when Americans need the great outdoors the most. People want to get outdoors, they want to exercise, they want to move, they want to visit our parks, and we need to make sure that when people get back out there, that these places are safe and adequate, and we're addressing these decades long issues of deferred maintenance.
Right.
Right. Hey, Kessler showed up.
But
Let's
Bob,
see, it's 7:17.
he's only 17 minutes late.
Yeah,
that's
good for him.
Hasn't been with us for a couple of weeks. Do you know Rick Kessler from our?
Everybody knows Rick Kessler.
Okay,
everybody knows Rick.
Everybody knows Rick.
John, this is the RV industry, John. Everybody knows Rick Kessler. Are you kidding me?
Thanks for joining us, Rick. Great to have you on.
Yeah. Nice to have you back, Rick.
Chris,
Jerry Plant says they should model the maintenance of the national parks after how the Corps of Engineers does it. How did that come into the discussions at all, or how did that interplay with what they did?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great suggestion. The Army Corps of Engineers has some of the best, outdoor recreation assets out there. And a lot of times when people think of outdoor recreation, they think of the national parks, they think of the forests, and they don't necessarily think of the Department of Defense, having any sort of outdoor recreation component of it. And, we're actually working on legislation right now that's already passed through House Committee that's going to take some of these other agencies that don't traditionally focus on recreation and ensure that recreation is part of their mission statement, like the Army Corps of Engineers and the Department of Transportation.
Yep.
But as far as modeling after other agencies, we're working right now, the RV Industry Association, the Outdoor Recreation Roundtable, which I'll explain in a minute who that is, on how can we develop this standard across agencies and throughout the park system, so we're not having this patchwork quilt. So it's something that we're working closely with the Park Service right now to, use the NFPA 1194 standard, and some of these standards that the industry has really, been active in leading and making sure that.
I got to do with DiPietro. Yeah. NFP 1194. We got these mostly consumers, mostly fans. What is NFPA 1194?
So that is the standard for RV parks and campgrounds. That's developed in concert with the NFPA 1192 standard for RVs. So as the RV industry evolves, this standard evolves with it. So we know how long the pull-through site should be, how wide should they be, where should they put the electrical and dump stations, and this is something that you guys know better than I do, that, the federal land agency, the National Park Services, the sizing of their campsites aren't big enough. They were made before slide outs, and we want to make sure that they have this standard that works in concert with the industry.
Yeah.
You should have been with us when Bob and I and actually Sherm Goldenberg, who works with Rick, right? They work together. We were speaking at the Northeast Campground Owners Association conference several years ago, and we asked what could RV manufacturers and campground owners have in common, and they said that same thing. At least have a standard for where the power input should come, where the dump station could be, so that they know how to build the RV parks so that you're not hauling wires across the camper and that type of thing. So, Bob and I always say that there is so little coordination between the campground owners and the RV manufacturers and even the dealers. I mean, they should all be in concert with each other. Maybe you guys on the national level can start it so that there is that coordination between all those associations.
Yeah, and I think that's where the standard comes in play too. There's members of private campground companies. I believe KOA is the chair of that committee, and there's manufacturers, there's suppliers, there's fire marshals, city officials, and government officials too. So we can all work in concert. And this is so important with this initiative, is as the Park Service goes through and they modernize and expand campgrounds and camping opportunities within their boundaries, we want to make sure that they're not just reverting it back to 1960s standards, where RVs are being pulled in, by horse and carriage, and they need to take into consideration, our hookups and our power needs, when it comes to 30, 50 amp, and if we're going to,
Go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say it's something that, as we move from, passing this legislation to now we have the money, we want to make sure we're right there in lockstep with the agencies in implementation. We're already working really close with them to make sure, hey, if you're going to already dig up this area to put in a new wastewater system, look at the campground, look at the electrical system. How can we be efficient with this money? How can we leverage partners? How can we bring in folks that do this, that are experts at it? Let's use the outside industry.
Yep.
I think that one of the things that is interesting, because probably about the last 2 years, I think the cooperation between RVIA, RVDA, RVic, and the other associations has significantly improved, and both from a standpoint of the contributions on the Great American Outdoors Act, but more recently with the COVID crisis. They just all responded and worked together on how we as an industry, because when it first hit, we didn't know as an industry, number one, that we were going to enjoy the success that we had, and number two, that the agencies, the associations themselves could work together so quickly, so efficiently with their your weekly meetings, and that has really brought a lot of that together. And we've always done it in New England. We work very closely with the campgrounds in New England. But I think as you look at what they've given us as a foundation for the Great American Outdoors Act, and the fact that we certainly need that as another alternative to the private campgrounds, because the private campgrounds are struggling now to do their own expansion, and this influx of all these new RV buyers, where are they going to go? So with a better National Park Service and State Park Service, then we've got another outlet for them to go, along with the Harvest Host and the Boondockers Welcome and all these private campgrounds. So we have to keep those customers happy too.
Chris, I'm going to ask you to repeat yourself for 1 second because you went through some numbers that were amazingly impressive, and I just want to bring them to a regional level. In this particular case, we're at a campground. I can say it, Bob. I can say Bailey's, right, Bob?
Yeah.
Can I say Bailey's on the air? Okay, good. Yeah. I did. So I talked with one of the owners at Bailey's, and I said, well, how big is your place? They said, we have 700 spots and 700 places, and they feed a lot of the business when they bring 700 outsiders into the marketplace. And we talked about the impact on the restaurants, the impact on the gas stations, the impact on, in this particular case, the attractions at Old Orchard Beach, the impact on the grocery stores. So the money is not, there's got to be some kind of multiplier effect, but you went through some numbers, like I wrote down 778 billion. Talk about those again, because I wanted to put those in the perspective of what they actually are. If Bailey's does that in Old Orchard Beach, Maine, take all these other components of outdoor recreation and tell me those numbers one more time, because I think they're amazingly impressive.
Absolutely. Just in the RV industry alone, we're a $114 billion industry.
That's back to the B word again.
That's with the B. And you can go to rvsmoveamerica.org, and you can take a look at that information. We have it broken down at the federal level, the national level, and the state level, all the way down to congressional district. So if you're an RV dealer, if you're a campground owner, if you're just an RVer that's having issues, with your local county or state, and you want to show the significant, economic impact that the RV industry has and the jobs that it creates, go to the website, pull this information, and use it as a tool, to show education is half the battle, right? If people don't know what they don't know, and if they're thinking about not approving an RV campground or not approving an expansion to a dealership or something along those lines, get on that website, pull the economic information, and show those people what a powerhouse we are. And then larger than that, you have the whole entire outdoor rec economy, John, which is $778 billion a year. I mean, and that's significant. It's one of the reasons why we're getting so much play, at Congress, why we're getting so much attention, is because they're now recognizing how significant this industry is and what our consumers do. Our RVers go to these national parks and they spend money, $20 billion in gateway communities by park visitors. Which has a $40 billion impact beyond that. I know you're a numbers guy, John, so I want to hit you over the head with the numbers.
I'm glad you got. I'm not a good research guy, but and anybody who's been to Yellowstone and is approached from the east has been to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and I'm guessing that outside of skiing in the winter, Jackson Hole survives on the number of visitors that go to Yellowstone. And I would say Bar Harbor, same thing.
Right.
With Acadia, one of the top, I think it's one of the top 5 national parks in the United States. So here we are.
Almost 4 million visitors this year. Yeah.
2 parts.
Last year. Yeah.
But Chris, you brought up something that was very interesting, and I heard it, and we hadn't discussed this before, but you said the hiking trails, are one of the things that need grooming, et cetera. But the hiking trails and the walk trails in the summer could be the snowmobile trails in the winter. So by cleaning up one area, you get 12 months use out of it.
Exactly. I mean, there's so much interwoven use when it comes to our great outdoors.
Yep.
When it comes to, as you mentioned, hiking and biking trails in the summertime, also equestrian horse riding trails and then snowmobile trails in the wintertime. And it's, one of the reasons why the outdoor recreation industry came together, that we all understand that there's a bigger picture here. We can, individually try to figure out, hey, which trail would be best for horseback riding, which trail would be best for just hiking and biking, but without this funding, without Congress giving this influx of funding and without the federal agencies implementing it correctly, we'll have no trails, So the fact, that everybody's come together to recognize this greater good, and even our RVers. I mean, we had a huge campaign, coming back to your point on industry unity. We had RV dealers, RV campgrounds, RV consumers all come together and go to rvact.org. That's our RV Action Center. I would encourage folks to go check it out, sign up. If you're passionate about the RV lifestyle and you want to have a voice on the Hill and when it comes to policy decisions, sign up and reach out to your members of Congress on some of these initiatives that really affect.
Let's take a step back, and I do want to recognize another late bloomer who. See, our fans are so good, Chris. They apologize when they're late. So Susan Carpenter's in, says, sorry, I'm late again. But Susan, of course, is the founder of the RV Women's Alliance, of which Monica is a member. Right?
AKA RVWA.
Right. But I want to give a shout out to Monica here because she's doing a lot of this work in the behind the scenes, but she's a very strong member of the board. And she does just an absolutely incredible newsletter for RVWA. So we appreciate that, Monica, very much.
She's one of our superstars, Bob, and Monica was one of the original champions of that RV industry economic impact study. So I'd be remiss not to give her a great shout out for that as well.
So let me see what Monica, economic numbers. Kessler says the bipartisan support is unheard of nowadays. Sure, as we mentioned it early on, Rick, had you been here early on, Rick, you probably would have heard us talk about that it may in fact be the only piece of bipartisan legislation to come out of Washington this year. Laturco serves on the Conservation Commission in Burlington, Mass. He says As a conservation commission in my local town, we were so concerned over the past few years that their emphasis was on wildlife and not the growth and beauty that needs to be at the forefront. This year's National Parks calendar finally emphasizes the park's beauty and landscape to enjoy. That's a good point, Ed, because if we don't take care of the land and the trees and the infrastructure, and when we talk about infrastructure, and I'm not a conservationist, Chris, but I assume that means planting more trees, creating the environment for the wildlife if they have to bring them back into a particular area like they did with the wolves at Yellowstone. I'm sure that's part of the program too, right?
Sure. I mean, I would argue that you are a conservationist. You just don't know it, Bob, because, you know, it's one of those things that, you know, recreationalists, RVers, we like to get outside, we like to recreate, but we're also conservationists. We pick up trash on the trails. We make sure that we don't veer off into protected areas. You know, and to Ed's point, you know, part of this legislation, whether it's on the Land and Water Conservation Fund or the Restore Our Parks side, is aimed at conserving these natural wonders. You know, not only do we want access to them to be able to enjoy them, we want to make sure that they're here for generations and generations of RVers and outdoor, you know, enthusiasts to come, you know, beyond us.
Okay.
Would you? I wanted to take one step backwards because you mentioned the hill, and for a lot of people, they don't realize what goes on behind the scenes in the RV industry and the work that's done. And everybody likes to criticize lobbyists, but we actually have described our RV caucus in the House and the Senate, and we got a lot of attention in Washington. And the only way you get things done is to be an active participant and an advocate for what you have. And over the last, 5 or 10 years, that whole group has really put the RV industry on the map. So talk a little bit about the caucuses and how often these people meet and how in touch they are, because that's your responsibility.
Absolutely. We have some fantastic champions on the Hill, that have really, promoted and championed our issues that are important to, manufacturers, dealers, the RV lifestyle, the parks, the consumer side of things. And, in the House RV Caucus, so I think we have over 40 members now, and we have about 15, 20 in the Senate side. And they've just been such great champions from, Congresswoman Walorski in Indiana. She gave a very compelling floor speech in support of the Great American Outdoors Act, to Senator Ernst out in Iowa, and even Senator Angus King up in Maine, who was a big RVer himself. He
is. That's right.
RVing trip. So, you got to be there. You got to, and that's one thing that the association has really taken seriously the last few years, and myself and our entire team is making sure that we have a seat at the table when it comes to, the RV industry and the RV lifestyle.
DiPietro.
Okay. We've spent 34 minutes talking dollars and cents, billions, millions, trillions, numbers of jobs, et cetera, et cetera. That's all well and good. But what we haven't talked about is what I call the softer side of RVing and camping. And that is every activity, Chris, that you've talked about can be enjoyed as a family.
Yes. There
aren't any other things out there. You can't take a family to an NFL game. You can if you take a loan out. But virtually everything that we've talked about with outdoor recreation allows us to do it as a family. And you know what? There's no price tag on that. Or like that Visa commercial or whatever it was, priceless.
Priceless, right? Yeah. I mean, it's one of the greatest deals ever, right? I can't go to a movie and park and have dinner, for under $100 these days, but I can go to a national park, many of them for free, and camp for $20, and take the entire family. So it's just the activities, that are out there for people. And, I always say, RVers, they're not just RVers because they love to camp. We love to camp and we love our R&R. We do that great, but, you got bikes and RVs, you got kayaks and RVs, and and it's really why we started the Outdoor Recreation Roundtable, in partnership with our boating and fishing and hiking friends, because we realized we're all in this together.
I'll tell you,
know?
everybody in our audience with that statement that you just made, Bob, I know you see it on 95 when you're going up to Maine from Massachusetts. I'll see it again tomorrow when I'm going up to New Hampshire. You don't just see RVs out there. You see RVs with bicycles attached to the back of them, with kayaks strung on top of them, with everything imaginable. Canoes. I mean, there's some that you see that they've got 2 canoes, 2 kayaks, and then the stand-up bikes up on top. It's amazing they can even get through underpasses. But the days of the RVer just, quote unquote, sitting around the campfire and doing nothing more, this new generation, they're the action crowd. Would you say that, Chris?
Absolutely. I mean, we're seeing a whole new demographic of people coming into the RV industry, that are part of this active lifestyle that wants to get out and have a low impact, on the environment, but still be able to participate in these activities. And outdoor recreation, we didn't have a voice. We didn't have a seat at the table, as far as Congress and the federal government was concerned. And, because of forming the Outdoor Recreation Roundtable and bringing 32 outdoor recreation groups together, we've taken that seat back. And we now, as you can see, by passing this legislation, and not just by the funding, but also the legislation that we have in the works to take care of some of the policy changes, that you shouldn't be able to have a bonus if you're a Park Service director and you close down a campground to get the deferred maintenance off your books. We want it to be part of their job description to focus on the outdoor recreation lifestyle and, be part of the metrics of hiring. What can you do to promote outdoor recreation and conservation?
One of the things that's really exciting, we certainly don't want to downplay the crisis with COVID, but the fact of the matter is people have never thought about going RVing or camping have discovered us because of COVID, because they realized that if they're going to have to homeschool their children, they don't have to be sitting at home in front of a computer. And just look at the forums, look at the comments that you see on social media. They're saying, hey, if I can do this, I'm going to give them a real education. I'm going to take them out to the national parks. I'm going to take them out to the forest. We're going to walk in the woods. We're going to turn over rocks and find the snakes and climb the side of the hill and do all the things. What's interesting in our generation, because you're such a young kid, Chris, you haven't, you're not up there with John and I, but that was what we did when we were kids. We didn't have computers. We didn't have 12 cars in the family and 5,000 square foot homes. We had to, make our activities ourselves. And now the families are doing that and the kids are discovering it. And guess what? They love it. And just look at the forums and social media.
Now, Bob, what you just said, will you get that damn buffalo off? He's scaring me.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So while you're getting the buffalo off, I want to tell you come out right. I want to tell you about a family that I ran into a week or 10 days ago in Gulfport, Maine, at a Harvest Toast. Okay, and I don't know, Chris, if you're familiar with Harvest Toast, but it's a way that people can go camp. And they were parked next to us. We pulled in at 10 o'clock at night when it was already dark and they were asleep. We talked to them in the morning, and they had a sign on their RV called Healthy Family Travel. And when we talked in the morning, we saw the dad and the mom, and there were 2 young kids and a dog. And we talked to them, and I said, where are you from? And they said, we're from California. And we left San Diego 7.5 weeks ago, and they had just gone to Lubec, Maine, which is the easternmost part of the United States, the easternmost point in the United States. So they went from sea to shining sea. What I'm getting at is this. The kids have traveled, the parents own international businesses that allow them to not be in one location. They can do it from the road. And they had been to Indonesia, they had been to Japan, they had been to South America, they had been to Europe several times, and the kids are only 12 and 10. So I said to one of the kids, what's your favorite trip so far? And both of them yelled right out, this one. Okay, so all jet trips with the first class Four Seasons hotels paled in comparison to parking at a golf course overnight in Gulfport, Maine. And again, it goes back to the family values that camping allows you to, what am I trying to say? There's one word, to participate in, I guess.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's not going to show up on a balance sheet, but it will with a family.
And to Bob's point before too, we started to see, this boom of consumers coming into the RV market, with the pandemic, as a way to be able to still, have the freedom and control of their environment and be able to still explore the great outdoors. But now we're seeing this whole other shift now that, schooling is starting to crank up and all of that's going virtual. People are like, I could sit at home and we could do this. Or we can get into this. We can get into this immersive education that people are talking about, and I can teach you about a geyser, or we can go out and see it. I can teach you about some of these things, or we can travel to the actual places and experience them. I mean, just how incredible is that, right?
Yeah. Let's catch up on a couple of things here. Mark Polk just joined. He's late tonight too. Wow, we've got a contest to see who else is going to be late tonight. But
people apologize when they're late. It's like we're taking attendance.
It's like Susan Carpenter says, what you all did is amazing, and I don't think anyone knows the work that went into pulling it off. Hats off to all of you who made this happen. I agree, and I do know what went on behind the scenes.
Well,
Monica says
about tonight's show.
Oh, she's talking. Oh, yeah. That's a good one, John. Very good. Monica says, including those who participated in advocacy days over the past years and were in those offices talking about the importance of this issue. Now, that's something that the people on the show don't know about. Let's talk, because that probably comes under your domain also, Chris, but let's talk about advocacy days and the importance of that first week in June, which we weren't able to do this year.
Yeah, I mean, this is my most favorite time of the year is when the industry comes together. You talked about it before of, and historically the industry being, siloed and segmented. But one of the things that I've noticed over the past 5 years is I've never seen the industry working closely, more closely together as one cohesive unit, than we have recently. And so this event, it takes, all components of the industry, from manufacturers to suppliers to dealers, campground owners, consumer, the club group presidents come out, and we all go up and we take over the hill and we talk about the issues that are important to our industry. And one of the things that we've been advocating for a few years now is the Restore Our Parks Act, which was part of the Great American Outdoors Act. It was folded into that. So, these are things that our folks have been advocating for. People that are watching the show, you guys, if you haven't came, we'd love to have you guys come and join us next year. Bob and John. And
I was planning on, I haven't done it, and this year I had it on the calendar, and I was going to go this year, and we had to cancel it. We will be there next year. I mean, because the other thing that's really critical there, it's CEOs. I mean, this is the cream of the crop. I mean, you get the Mike Happys, you get the Millers, you get all, the Bob Martins. They're all there, and they're marketing and they're PR people. But I think the greatest thing that they do, and one of the reasons I want to go, because I just can't wait to visit with Elizabeth Warren and Ed Markey and whatever. But is they go around and they have meetings with their individual Congress people and senators and talk about the industry and the importance. They deliver the economic impact report, the figures that they have. So again, it's an issue where we're very highly visible for the contributions that we make to the country in terms of the 2.2% of the gross product. We get our fair share of publicity, and those people, Monica is right, they deserve a big hand.
Yeah, but Bob, maybe what we should do next year, Chris, tell us if we can do this. We'll bring a bunch of RVers, real people, not elected officials, not corporate execs. The corporate execs are there because, quote unquote, they have to be there. But Walter Swenson doesn't have to be there. Susan Carpenter doesn't have to be there. Maria doesn't have to be there. Don and Pat Hawes don't have to be there. But if they all show up and then flood their own congressional offices and their own senatorial offices, that, in a peaceful thing, it's not like we're marching on Washington. But
I think you've brought up a great point. I mean, and ways, we're looking at ways that we can expand this program and getting more voices up there. The biggest thing is to get there, meet with your member of Congress, meet with your senator, and educate them on the industry. Let them know who we are, what we're about, and the things that are important to us. And for us as an association, we do all the work for it. We set up all your meetings for you. We do all the scheduling. We provide all the materials, and we just, need the advocates. We need the voice to go up there and to educate.
That's a great idea, John. NERVTA could rent a couple of buses, and like you say, Walter's got his gang with the Good Sam chapters, and they've all got it. Audrey, I don't think Audrey's on tonight, but Audrey has her group of 10 people that go camping most weekends. Jerry Plant's got a bunch of people, I'm sure, that could come from Major's RV down the Cape, and that's kind of a nice idea. So we got plenty of time to plan for that. That would be good. And it would supplement the other thing, because imagine a Bob Martin sitting next to a Walter Swenson, and right, talking to the people and say, look, here's the CEO, but guess what? Here's the guy that uses the product. Here's the guy that's out in the campground every weekend. Let him tell you about his family and the benefits and how that plays into the industry. So that might be a great, we'll be glad to work with you, to try to get that component.
Plus,
we're all in this together, and so I'd be interested to hear some more of your guys' ideas and see how we can expand that.
Plus, what it does at the same time is it erases that stereotype of RVers that are all retirees that do nothing, that sit around the campfire and go to sleep at 7 o'clock at night. Don't leave the campground. Don't go out and contribute to the local economy. Okay, so now you bring people in their 30s and 40s, and even if they bring kids with them, once you bring these people into the congressional offices and realize that these are the friends and neighbors of the congressional staffers that work there, that are from Massachusetts, that are from Virginia, that are from West Virginia and Georgia, et cetera, et cetera. And the thing we need to do, Chris, is we need to get you, next time you go to Washington, don't wear a jacket and tie, wear an official RVing in New England t-shirt like this.
like this.
Yeah. Fire one down to me. I'll wear it.
One down to you. And you walk in.
I'll be honored to wear it.
You walk into.
Yeah, you do that. Yeah, you can wear it around the office. What size, Chris?
Men's large.
Send him an XL. He's lying.
I think I could tell it was a men's, Chris. Not sure, but yeah.
But ladies and gentlemen, for those of you that may have just joined us, sometimes Kessler joins us right about now. In the show. We're talking with Chris Bornemann, who's the Vice President for Government Relations from the RV Industry Association. If there's a question in our remaining minutes here that you want to ask him, fire it into your computer and send it out. And even if we can't get to it while we're on the air tonight, Monica has agreed to answer those questions. So go ahead. I mean, folks, this benefits all of us, okay? Yes. Whether you're a snowmobiler or a camper, we're all in this together, Chris, like you said.
Absolutely.
Well, the other thing that can come from this, we always talk about the numbers of RVs and the number of campgrounds and what have you, but one of the things that we all know, in addition to these new buyers that we're getting, and 50 to 80%, depending on which story you read, are first-time buyers. A lot of those were probably camping in tents already, and there's 30 million tenters that are out there. So now we're going to give them even better outdoor experiences, improved conditions in these national parks. They're going to see more RVs and trailers in these parks. So it's a great farm system to bring these people right along into the industry. And if we do this right, and it all hinges on whether we do this right. Do we have the right campgrounds, whether we sell them good products, we service good products. We got a run of 5 to 10 years of historical numbers ahead of us if we do this right.
Yeah, we hope so. And it's something that, we're continuing to work closely with the federal agencies, with the state parks, and educating them on what's going on in the RV industry. And, I want to underscore something that for your viewers too, is you guys have a voice on the Hill. I mean, through us, and through the RV Act system and through the membership, we have a voice now, and we want to make sure that, we continue to educate them on all of our issues, whether it's present or future.
Hey, Bob, we made a glaring error here.
What?
We didn't ask Monica what size she wears, and
but did she send us a little note? Or
No.
are you just being
She's being polite. I'm preempting her note so that
all right, so Monica, let me know, send me an email, let me know what size
she's not
you
going to
have.
publicly. Women don't say their size publicly.
Well, actually, Chris, when you get back, so we should take care of Jay Landers, your boss, who's a Massachusetts guy, and he does a great job, and we don't see him enough. But send us a list, and we'll get you some RV in New England shirts, so you can wear them around the office when you all go back to the office.
Okay.
Susan says everyone needs to go. Monica says RVs Move America Week is absolutely the best week of the year, and I agree. We'll storm the hill next year. Yeah. Maria says that would be awesome. Ed says if they can do motorcycle trains, why not RVs? Oh, he's talking about parades through Washington and people going to Washington. Yeah, that's another aspect of it.
As part of Advocacy Day, we work with the Capitol Police and the Sergeant at Arms on the House and Senate, and we bring RVs back behind the barriers for members of Congress and staff to come out. And, we're not just, talking the talk, we're walking the walk. We want people to come out and experience them, look at them, touch them, see what the industry is all about.
And you know what, Chris? To make that even more effective, because those are all brand new ones. They're sterile brand new ones. Bring them out with license plates from their state. Okay.
There you go.
You know what I mean? So Jim McGovern would come see one from Massachusetts. Somebody from Connecticut would come see one. You know what I mean? Bring them. I don't know if there's enough room in Washington to do that, but
it's tough. They don't give us a ton of room because every spot we take up is either a member of Congress or a high-ranking official's personal parking spot. So they're very picky with what they give us. But
you know what a great idea though. Imagine having them come out and say, "This is an RV. This is the Massachusetts RV," and they can talk to a consumer, one of their constituents, and his Connecticut, and maybe Chris Andro takes one of his down from Hemlock Hill and talks to them. That's a great idea. You got a couple of good ideas tonight, DiPietro.
Just the way I am.
Yeah, Janine Pettis was also planning to go next year. Monica said after 10 years, pass the baton. Next one will be led by Chris. Oh, she's turning it over to you.
Yes, she's done Advocacy Day.
Yeah.
Gosh, I guess it's been 10 years. I can't believe it's been that long, but I mean, she's done a fantastic job.
She's been out of college for 10 years. She looks, well, can't say that.
Well, she started Advocacy Day when she was in middle school. So
okay, that's more like it. Yep, we got out of that one quick. We got out of that one pretty good, Bob. Here you go. Okay, so Eric asked for, is there a website? Yes, 4 questions down. Here is the website.
What website do we want, Eric?
Here you go. RVIA.org events. America's Move America Week.
Yep, RVs Move America Week. If you go to RVIA.org, you can check that out there. For economic impact information, RVsMoveAmerica.org. And if you want to check out more information on the Outdoor Recreation Roundtable, which the RV industry has leadership roles within there, you can go to recreationroundtable.org and see more about.
Jim Conboy's got a question. Thanks for joining us again tonight. Jim runs New England RV Roof and is doing a great job putting on new roofs for RVers. But Jim is an active RVer, and he's usually down at the Cape. But he says, as a member of the Massachusetts Beach Buggy Association, I'd love to put Chris in touch with some of our management team fighting for RV access on the national seashore. Sounds like it's part of that conversation, right?
Sure. I think this is why, this interaction is so valuable. Is let us know where we're having some of these issues, and we work close with these federal agencies, and if it makes sense, it's something that we can definitely talk to them about and see what we can do. For sure. Jim,
send me that information. I'll get it along to Chris. We can do that. Laturco says, send me a shirt as I will be at the Mass State House next week. We are out of shirts right now, Ed, and you're not as big as I am. Otherwise, I'd send you one of mine, but you could put you and Marion in my shirt. So I'll have to get you on the waiting list, but see if we can do that.
Texas.
Huh? Yeah, Bob, Frank says, Bob, great info on the huge improvements expected to come our way soon on improving these camping facilities. Also, please send a message later. Where did you get that headset with microphone? It'll help me with my Zoom meetings. Yes, this is the new Logitech. I forget. I'll send you I'll post it up there for people. But it is Bluetooth and USB. We'll do that. Don says, I got Texas. I think he means he wants to represent Texas. Hey, the governor spoke in the bicycle. That's right. Governor Baker from Massachusetts did a press conference on Wheelworks in Belmont talking about bicycles, because this isn't just RVs. When you look at who's going to use and benefit from the Great American Outdoors Act, people who are also enjoying a nice resurgence, whether it be boats, bicycles, motorcycles, mopeds. Mopeds are going crazy. Bicycles are going crazy. Good point, Ed.
Electric bikes.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, this really touches all aspects of the outdoor recreation lifestyle, from coast to coast. Even if you don't live near a national park, this is going to provide funding for state parks, local parks. It's really incredible.
So, Chris, see the role we played the last two. You guys didn't see me, but I reached over and I shut off my phone. But see, they love us so much. Diane says, I love it when I text Bob when he's on the air. Sorry about that. I'm just so excited about what's happening in this episode. What's happening is we're not going to tell you about what's happening until next week, but she's part of it too, and I've been working with her. And she says you're crushing it, Chris.
Well, thank you, Diane. I know Diane well too. It's great to see.
Talk about energy and motivation and contacts. I mean, she's in the old days we'd call her a firecracker, but it's probably not politically correct to do that anymore either.
But Bob,
she knows how to fire it up. That's for sure.
We have to acknowledge a mistake we have to acknowledge a mistake that was made tonight.
Oh, really?
I will.
What mistake did you make, DiPietro?
Well, I didn't make the mistake, but Monica said, after 10 years, I've passed the baton. Next one will be led by you, Chris. Okay?
No, I said that.
Carpenter says, wow, good for you. More time to spend on RVWA thing.
Who said that?
Chris, Susan Carpenter. So Monica thought she was going to get some time off because she doesn't have to do this again. But Susan has drafted her for RVWA.
Well, obviously she's having so much fun with RVWA and the things she's doing. But then the one thing she wanted to jettison was Advocacy Week, right, Chris?
Well, we're going to be pulling her back and forth from both sides, so we'll see. We'll see who.
Hey, tell them who Chris travels in good circles. Tell them who you're with here, and then I'm going to put up one more picture. But this guy is very important to what just took place.
Yeah, so that's the current Secretary of the Department of Interior, David Bernhardt, and to his right, our left, would be Craig Kirby, our new president of the association, and this is with Secretary Chow of the Department of Transportation, and this was when we were recently invited to the White House for a briefing from President Trump on outdoor recreation and conservation issues and policy that they're working on. So it was an honor to be in the White House and to be there with these folks and to be able to advocate for the RV lifestyle.
And you'll look a lot more relaxed next year when you go with an RVing in New England shirt instead of that Brooks Brothers
those suits and tie thing, right?
I hope that's the one of the silver linings that come out of this is I hope I never have to wear a tie ever again. Why do we wear those things? Let's be a little bit more relaxed.
Haven't had them on for 8 years. All right, last two comments. Monica says takes one to know one. Okay. She's talking about Diane saying Monica is a superwoman. Well, all women on RVWA, working with RVWA, are superwomen. Sandy Ellington, the executive director, just a phenomenal group that is making great contributions. Laturco says, great show tonight and enjoyed listening to Chris and the role he plays in our government. Well, didn't you enjoy listening to Bob and John, Ed? I mean, geez, we bring these guys on and they get all the credit, you know? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
So,
Thank
wow.
you. I appreciate the kind words. And
I can't believe that the hour has disappeared. But I told you it would go fast. We don't know. It just kind of gets up there, and next thing you know, we're out of time. But Chris, I'll let you have the last word because I'll let you have the worst. Then DiPietro jumps in. But I'll let you. Yeah, I'll let you say some parting words to our fans and now your new fans.
Well, I just want to thank everybody for your time tonight. You know, I hope you can hear and see the passion that I have for the industry and the association has in our team. And, you know, we're going to continue to get out there on the Hill, you know, whether it's on the federal side or the state side and fight and advocate for the RV lifestyle. You know, it's been too long that RVers have rolled up to these, you know, national park campgrounds and weren't able to fit their RVs in, or the roads were closed, or the campground, you know, the sites weren't wide enough to get into. So, you know, sign up on RVact.com, let your voice be heard. You know, this industry unity that we have is powerful, and we just continue to look forward to building that bridge. And, you know, whether it's with manufacturers, suppliers, dealers, campgrounds, consumers, we're all in this together. And you know, that's our mantra. So.
Well, you've done a great job, Chris. I really appreciate you coming on. John, I'll give you the final word, and then we'll hit the button.
Well, we just want to thank our audience for joining us tonight for this edition of RVing Across America. Join us again this time next week when we return with RVing in New England.
All right. Be safe out there. Travel well, and we will see you next week. Thank you.